Hello and welcome to our first post-game live reaction episode at Store Central. This is Aman Kidwai, joined by Graham Chamberlain, here to break down the Huskies' 63-17 win over Merrimack. Graham, your thoughts after the game?
It was good. It was really good.
It was good.
It's really the first time since 2010 that UConn played an FCS team here at Rensselaer and just completely outclassed them, outgained them, out everything them in every facet of the game. There's always questions, right? You play an FCS team, and we've had results recently: 24-21 Wagner, 24-20 Holy Cross. They lost to Holy Cross. Even last year, Sacred Heart 31-3 that Coach Moore wasn't really happy about either. So I think it was a much more complete performance, and then 63 points that ties the FBS record set in 2002 against Kent State in the final game at Memorial on campus. So all in all, really good. You can't ask for much better, especially after what happened last weekend.
Yeah, I think the way that they absolutely dominated is super encouraging. They forced 5 3-and-outs in the first half. Fagnano threw 5 touchdown passes. They were ultra efficient. They were hitting big plays for touchdowns. What do we got here? 50, 48, 29, 46, 60, 39. Those are all, touchdown plays here, and a 44. So those are all just UConn's touchdowns, which is a level of explosiveness we have not seen in the past from UConn. And I think it's clear, again, regardless of the opponent, UConn has some pop offensively here.
Yeah, and you saw the play, I think specifically back to Cam Edwards' 50-yarder. He just outran the Merrimack defense. And, that should be the difference you see when you're playing an FCS team as an FBS team. But, yeah, we haven't seen that.
Yeah.
So it was really good to see that. Skylar Bell, same deal, his 60-yarder. Victor Rosa, you just saw the speed differential that was on the field today, and that's exactly what you guys needed to upgrade in recent years.
Yeah, everyone got involved. Jarrell Robinson had the long touchdown run, 48-yard touchdown run. Rosa had a touchdown. Skylar Bell, Ezra Anderson, Shamar Porter, all touchdowns, 2 of them on longer plays. So many people getting involved. I think that's going to be huge for their confidence going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. This game could have gone, after last weekend, you never know what the team's mindset is. Obviously Coach Moore is going to come out. He's going to say, there's a good week of practice. It always is, right? But you really never know until you come out here. And, just a great confidence booster, like you said. It just really, that's it.
Yeah, UConn has not handled an FCS opponent like this ever, or in a long time at least. In the Jim Moore era, they've done a good job with FCS opponents, to their credit. But this was really different, and I think they deserve a lot of credit for doing that. Like you said, could have totally showed up flat today and still won, still had a good outing statistically and all that, but they really dominated. And I think that's why, we talk about an FCS opponent, new to FCS, so not even like a stalwart within the league.
Yeah.
But I think no matter what, you have to be super encouraged by seeing UConn put up 63, over 600 yards of offense, all those big plays, backup quarterback throwing 5 touchdowns.
Let's talk about Joe Fagnano. 331 yards, 5 touchdowns. That ties Dan Orlowski's single game record. Coach Moore said that Nick Evers is the guy if he's healthy. And, obviously we got to take him at his word to a certain extent. But I feel like that's really tough to discount what Fagnano did today. And that was only on what? It was on
19 attempts.
19 attempts. When he connected for big plays. He missed some big plays too.
Missed a couple.
He had some guys wide open on some throws, and that'll come with time. That can get ironed out as the season goes. Do you think there's a quarterback controversy, going into Duke next week?
It's a really good question. A lot comes into play here. I thought Fagnano looked really stable in the pocket. I thought he was making his progressions well in general. You mentioned the missed plays. That's just like missed throws. I think it's not bad reads. I saw pretty good reads in general in the RPO game and the read options and stuff like that. He's actually decent runner, like a sneaky athletic
saying
runner.
this,
You know,
he's
he's an
he
athlete.
can run.
He's
He
an
can
overall
run.
athlete.
Yeah.
This guy's from Williamsport, Pennsylvania. You know, he played some Little League baseball. You know, he loves the b-ball with his friends. But Joe Fagnano, again, you know, good for you. Anytime you're in the same breath as Dan Orlovsky, when we're talking UConn QB accomplishments, that's incredible. And I mean, QB controversy, I think it's more of a question than people think.
Yeah.
And I think the initial thing is just like, oh, you've got a guy like Nick Evers. He comes in with such a high pedigree. You invested a lot NIL-wise to bring him in.
Yeah.
How can you justify not starting him, not playing him? Totally get that. But this guy's a redshirt sophomore. And you do want to win right now. And I think you can make the argument, if you are the head coach, your responsibility is to win.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you do think Fagnano is the guy who can do it. I think it's just going to take more time, though. It's going to have to be, you know, do well against Duke, a good defense, and then do it. I think we can say fairly convincingly, given what we saw from Merrimack, Nick Evers might have had a pretty good day out there, too.
Yeah, it would. I can't imagine it would have gone very differently.
I can't imagine Nick Evers couldn't have completed some of those throws into the flat and let Cam Edwards run it in the end zone.
He probably would have run a little more than Fagnano did, but I mean, yeah, I'm certainly not saying that Evers wouldn't have been able to do what Fagnano did today. Again, he's an experienced guy. He's got a lot of snaps, not as many at the FBS level, but he has a lot of snaps. And, you know, Evers, last week was his first real game action since high school. It's been 3 years. So, and that's something that Jim Moore really values.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm not going to say anything yet today, but I think it's a possibility as we get closer to Duke.
It comes down to, I guess, you know, a matter of how much you want to build for the future versus kind of win now, and, you know, how important that is necessarily. The answer is, of course, it's really important. You know, the fans are starved for winning. There's been not many wins these last few years. Let's talk about the defense a little bit. I mean, you know, same thing, really exposed last week against Maryland in a lot of different ways, a lot of things you're really concerned about. But this week, again, not just handled a weaker opponent, really dominated them.
Yeah.
I think, 0 TDs in the first 5 drives. They didn't get on the board until it was 28-0.
Yeah.
What did you think about the performance from the defense?
I mean, it was fantastic. They were under 100 yards, I think, up until that 71-yard touchdown pass where some wires got crossed there in the secondary. Wasn't great. Not what you want to see, but again, I'm not going to argue about the final result. I really like Jaden McDonald today. I know he's playing with a shoulder issue. He's just toughing it out, and you know that's hard to do. Better man than I. Same with Tui Famina Brown. He's got a broken finger, I think, and I
wouldn't be typing stories if I had a broken finger. You know.
Exactly. And he's just going to club it up and go out there and just tough it out. And I'm sure DC Brock and Mora love that about these guys. Again, they're out there. They took care of business. Less than 100 yards for a long time, which I'm happy to see after Billy Edwards Jr. last week really just did whatever he wanted to do in the passing game last week. So, again, it's Merrimack. It always comes back to, well, it's just Merrimack, but it's like we said in the opening, it's not always this way. So,
of course,
it's a low-tier FCS team. And okay, so we now know that UConn is somewhere in between, not anywhere near the middle of the Big Ten, but way above the low-tier of FCS. So we really don't know.
That's all we know for sure. Yeah. I mean, look, again, things that are indicative of a sharp performance as opposed to a sloppy performance when you are matched. No turnovers, right? That's good. Strong overall average clip offensively. Really efficient, effort in the passing game. Fagnano completed 13 passes to get those 5 touchdowns. I mean, that's, lots of big plays. I mean, the only downside of the big plays is you had some 9-second drives, 45-second touchdown drives. Maybe your defense got a little tired. Maybe that's what led to some of the scoring. You're able to get the backups in. That's also huge for UConn at this time, really for both sides of the ball. Think about quarterback. One more guy goes down to QB. You have a different guy starting. That's something to be concerned with. And then on defense, probably still a lot of competition for playing time to even figure out. So I think really good that they were able to get their second stringers, third stringers out there through the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw a bunch of guys out there. We don't see a ton. We saw Matt Hoffman on the D line. I know Jaden Simon got out there a little bit. In the secondary, we saw Javarius Sims. Ronte Jones got out there after missing the first half from targeting. So, the expectation is that Malik Dixon Williams comes back next week. So, it'll be interesting to see what the safety position looks like between the two of them. And, at quarterback, knock on wood, but if a quarterback does go down, you don't want that throwing them in to be their first game experience. Like, especially if someone like Cole Welliver, who has seen at least McDonald had a couple snaps last year at UMass, you don't want it to be the moment to be too big for them. And I think getting out there and being able to actually throw some passes and not just hand it off is huge for them. That's big. We saw a lot of different receivers today. As I was doing my recap, I mean, the leader in receptions was actually Honig with 3. So the ball got spread around quite a bit.
Bunch of other guys with 2.
Yeah. So that's great. It's awesome to have Skylar Bell and his big play capability, but you also don't want just one guy. I mean, we've seen that with Noel Thomas Jr. and Jeremy Davis, even though they were awesome, but they were the only ones. And so it's nice to have at least some other dudes that can step up.
Mm-hmm. So, we've talked about it over and over. Solid performance, encouraging despite the lower tier opponent, despite what happened in week 1. Have to be encouraged by what you saw of the Huskies. Mora actually said he saw some signs from the offense last week. Just some notes from the press conference. He also mentioned Price Yates might be close. He hopes to have him back next week. So we shall see. How are you thinking about this Duke matchup coming up on Saturday? The Huskies lost big right here on this field about a year ago. Much different Duke team. UConn's 1-1. What do you think they need to do on Saturday next week?
I mean, Duke is similar to UConn in that, they played an FCS team, and it could have been a lot bigger for Duke against Elon in week 1, but it wasn't. They won 26-3. Ended up getting a win last night in double overtime at Northwestern. It wasn't pretty. It was 13-13 going into overtime. And, again, conditions aren't great. The winds are swirling off Lake Michigan there, and it's really not the greatest environment, but they came out. I mean, they have a really good quarterback in Malik Murphy. They have a great receiver, and I'm going to always forget his first name, but Moore. He's a Jay Moore, either Jacquez or Jordan. I can't remember which one it is. I think he had 15 targets last night, 11 catches, But then that was pretty much it. So they have the one dude, and they have really good chemistry, it looks like, Murphy and Moore. So it'll be big to shut him down. The Duke's defense is really good. It was good last year. It's going to be good again. Yeah. And I think that's where my biggest hang-up is. I think that UConn's defense can hang in there with this team. But can they put up points? They don't have to put up 63. But can you get 28? Mm-hmm. Can you get 24? That may be enough. And I think it's probably a defense that's on par at least with Maryland. Mm-hmm. So that's what's concerning most.
Yeah, I think, in terms of expectations, it's you got to be better than the Duke game last year, even though that was at home. You got to be better than the Maryland game this year, as you're saying. And, defensively, I think Duke's still going to be really tough. They might even be better than Maryland defensively. I think it's probably not likely that they're better offensively than Maryland, but they might still be able to put up that crooked number. And I think that's, what your UConn, even though you had a good day today, you can't have it happen again, because then we're talking about negative vibes, going into the next week, a night game at home. You have a big opportunity, FAU, start of a 6-game homestand to really get something going. So, even though it's a road game against a P4, it's something that big stakes for UConn, I think, going forward.
Yeah, and we'll talk about more about Duke this week. We'll be joined by Ben Bird, the Bull City coordinators. We talked to him earlier in the summer to kind of get a preseason view of Duke. We're going to get more in-depth analysis of Duke after 2 games. So watch out for that this week in Store Central. But yeah, excited for the Duke game. It's going to be
interesting.
It's, I hadn't thought much of it going into the year, but I think at this point, the way the first 2 games have gone, it's a really important game. Mm-hmm. I think the season can kind of tilt one way or another. Even if it's a close loss, I think you could feel good
Mhm.
going into that homestand, but you can't do what you did against Maryland.
Exactly. Yeah. No 50-7 loss.
No
We cannot have
57s,
that.
no more. All done.
That is the goal for this week. That's going to do it for us here. Thank you all for listening and watching from the rink.